Yeah,
I'm glad you
something
asked for the vibe check.
yeah, something seemed off. Something was off. All right, now that our future friends are here, now it's a party. Um, okay, so in a TypeScript project, my favorite thing to address first is the interfaces, because then I just follow the errors and that's about it. So I'm gonna go to the platform. All right. And then before I move forward, I'm also going to read Tomas's suggestion. And yep, you just love it. Interface dependency container. Yes, and we have a desktop and a browser specific one. Cool. Um, yeah, I love it. And I almost am anticipating that main is like the only thing that's probably going to receive the dependency container for right now. Like, so I think we're just creating a glorious object for this common main thing, but we'll see. Um, this is also still looking forward to a future there where we possibly do have implemented dependency injection. So it's nice that we can encapsulate all of that in one place so that if we have a more robust system, we can take advantage of it. So I am sensing I'm going to need an interface that's dependency container, and it's not a platform thing, which just feels so good. I'm so glad I'm not coupling this to platform. Uh, I'm just going to, I think, put this at the top level unless someone has a better idea. Um, this is usually the kind of feedback I just wait for code review because I personally don't really care what folder it lives in. As long as it's in common, that's my my biggest concern. Uh, but I'm just going to create a little interface for a dependency container. All right. And what are we looking for? We're looking for, yeah, GitLab Platform Manager and telemetry environment. So cool. All right. So we could do something like manager lab platform manager. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I'm making these read only, and we can implement them with like getters and stuff or however we want to. But if I wrote my interface like this, then it would mean that the dependency container could be written to after it was created, and I don't really want to support that in the interface. Um, all right, so then I'm making this read only of uh, telemetry environment. That's not a thing anymore. Did I not call that? Did we not call it telemetry environment? What did I do to it? Did I call it GitLab telemetry environment? Maybe I did. Oh, it's just not finding it. All right, I gotta go find it. I probably need to restart my TypeScript server for it to find this a little better. Yeah, there we go. Now I found it. Okay. So when you're working in a TypeScript project, that's you see that command was at the top. Restart TypeScript server. Sometimes the caching is a little creative, but cool. That's great. So here's all our dependencies and a nice little container object. Um, while we're here, maybe we can establish the responsibility of this thing. This interface provide implementations of this interface should only provide implementations of interfaces. Oh yeah. Such
Why
a
do you
bad
clarify that,
description.
Paul? Also?
Uh uh yeah. This is anticipating a future DI system where we want to declare limitations for these dependencies that might be used across the app. I'll let the reviewer figure out a better way to phrase that. Okay, great. So now when I activate common, I think I'm gonna receive. Oh yeah, yeah, and let's get telemetry stuff out of manager. Um, Okay. So I'm going to hop back into manager. I can get rid of this thing. Great, great, great. All right. And now I know I'm already going to get some failures because the things that are implementing this class, I'm not going to delete those yet because I want to move them to when we are doing the dependency container thing. But I can, VS Code has some really great things where I can like go to references and look at all my references of the thing. But I think I can also go to implementations. If you ever use that, yeah, I can go to implementations. I could quickly jump to the different implementations of my interface. So I'll be ready to do that. Oh man, I don't want to do that. I'll be ready to do that in just a bit. Okay. All right. So this is blowing up because I'm not going to take a manager anymore. I'm going to take, we're going to call it depths. I'm sorry. We can call it something else. I don't know. What is any ideas of what we may want to call it?
Dependencies.
Container.
Fair enough.
Dependency container.
Dependency contain. I like. We can be very verbose about it.
Yeah.
Oh, wait.
That's the .NET. Sorry, I mean TypeScript way.
Yeah. All right, and then .telemetry environment. Great. And then dependency container .GitLab. Oh my gosh, I realized this is actually, I can actually spread this. We want to do that? Nah. Okay. Cool. So
one of my big hobbies is to make code incomprehensible for people who are not doing TypeScript in anger. Spreading everywhere is one way to definitely
spreading everywhere is
that.
one way to do that. Okay. My least favorite thing is like if you're spreading into a variable that's already been declared. I hate that thing, always throws me off. And just like our ESLint regularly recommends doing that and always throws me off.
I really like spreading like 3 levels deep with default values for the properties.
Yeah, that's a pain.
That's the way to do it.
All right, I'm gonna try to use my vim commands to do this. All right, that worked out. I've been tweaking my VS Code environment to be a bit more so I can flex on other people. That's what I've been doing.
Try to put the left sidebar to the right. That's the biggest flex that I know.
The biggest one. That's the biggest flex. Well, I can't do it now, Tomas, because I clearly be copying you. I gotta somehow flex, but do my own states, you know. All right. So we have this cool thing where we create GitLab Platform Manager browser. I'm anticipating we want to do dependency container browser here. Is that sounding?
Yeah, or we can just like in here, since it's 2 lines, I will just create it in the browser TS.
Okay. Do you mind if I
because
create
you will create
a separate function?
The platform. I don't mind. I just like, I mean, you'll create GitLab Platform Manager and you create the telemetry environment. And then you can just pass it with creating object literal with the shorthand for key and value, and it's going to be very concise way to do it.
That works out for me.
It's going to stop working when we have like 5 things in that dependency container, but for now.
Yeah. Okay. It looks like I just need to new up the GitLab telemetry environment browser.
Do y'all already have ideas of other things that would go inside the dependency container besides telemetry?
Well, now we've got the user agent that we are putting in each platform, and that's not really, that was very similar to the telemetry in terms of it's not dependent on which account, GitLab account you are connected to. It's just, if you are in a browser, it's a empty user agent string, and if you are in desktop, it's the desktop user agent, and something like that could go in the dependency container in the future as well.
Yeah, probably things like the language server as well. If we want to have the language server on both desktop and browser, we can switch between those as well with like the client's config or something.
Are you cool if I move this setup though to the very top? It
Sounds
just
good.
feels like initial stuff.
Yeah. I think when we move to DI, you'll just declare the names of things you want eventually.
Yeah. What do you think, Tomas?
Yeah, that looks great.
Okay. Cool. So then we want to do something very, very similar in the desktop world. So I think this just highlights if I was a maintainer reviewing something that was doing something similar to this. One is like introducing a new top level abstraction clearly warrants some level of a discussion. And we had that discussion, which is great. Tomas and Enrique, I'd love to hear your opinions on. I think the Slack channel is a great place to maybe have those and start those discussions. We can have it in the MR, but sometimes just bringing awareness of like if anyone wants to hop in. The Slack channel is pretty active of maintainers, so I think that's a good place to maybe send up the discussion signal. But then if someone's making a change like this, there should be some symmetry between browser and desktop. I say that while with full knowing that the entry point names are different. The entry points look very different between browser and desktop, but that's just because of the history of the project. But the change, hopefully itself, has a level of symmetry. Okay, so set up telemetry. We actually don't need to do. Oh yeah. So this isn't a change I had made yet, but because we do this in Activate Common, set up telemetry. Let me just double check. We're calling Activate Common here. Yeah, we are. So I don't need to do setup telemetry here because that's actually not a thing anymore. We have a common telemetry thing. I'm just providing this interface. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and copy this bit and we're going to make it desktop specific. And this is the desktop entry point. Okay. So where are we creating our cool platform manager? GitLab Platform Manager Desktop. GitLab Platform Manager Desktop. Oh, this is somewhere else. Let's see. Oh yeah. Okay, this is like a singleton. All right, we'll just put it in there. Okay. And then I am curious how oh, let me jump into here and see how I was creating our telemetry environment. Yep, I'm just newing up the thing. I'll go ahead and copy this and move it over to, I guess I can just keep this in line. Let's add the import, get rid of this thing, add a comma, boom. All right. I can, I had my cool, I forgot, man, my brain totally forgot all my special hotkeys for going to next problem. Like that sounds like a cool, helpful hotkey, but for the meantime, I'm just
In
following the
Vim,
notes.
I'm using the square bracket D, like diagnostics.
Oh,
It's like the
and NeoVim,
in NeoVim, yeah.
but that's you don't have that set up for like VS Code Vim.
I don't, but lots of these things just work. Like the most common, like
Yeah.
I would try because
I'll
you
have to
have
try that
the
out.
Vim. Yeah, when you create some issue, you can like some diagnostic error, you can try.
Okay. But cool. So I don't see any issues here. So I'm feeling good about it. Now I think I
Yeah,
need
I'm
to
not
just,
sure. I know that we were saying that we want to keep it like similar, and you like to set up this thing at the top because it's like a setup thing. But the whole activate method in the desktop version of it's like a setup thing, and the initial, 70 lines of code have to happen in order. That's why they are not like invoked you know, the first 70 lines happen in order, and then at the bottom you have like a do not await and do all these things in parallel. And so that's the line 284. And so I wonder whether, since this is only necessary for the activate command, whether we would want to move it here, because otherwise you set up the dependency container, then you don't use it for 200 lines of code, and then you call it.
Yeah.
Ideally, we will have all this beautiful functionality in a browser as well, and the browser and eventually desktop TS will look the same. But for now, I would put it just closer where it's used.
Yeah, that's fine. I think the eventually bit is why I would lean towards the top, because I think like it being on the top is kind of hopefully what allows us to move more and more of these things to common. But I agree. If I'm just looking at this, it is confusing. So I will probably, for this long method,
You know,
makes
it will
sense.
end up at the top when you are moving the things from above it.
I know. So that's the other way
it
to
will
do
just
it.
bubble up to the top.
I know. Yeah. I clearly like to, write checklists of things I've already done so I can just check it off and feel good about it rather than
What I
working.
see, I can see us like using local variable references for like GitLab Manager already. If we refactor it to have a dependency container, we're going to start moving it. But as Thomas said, we're going to be slowly moving it up as we start adding more into the container.
Yeah. This is the first time I've ever seen this zoom feature that you're pointing to the screen. That sounds so helpful. My gosh. So you just click on it?
Yeah, if you go to view options and zoom, then it annotates.
Oh, that's nice. That's way better than me doing this. The pointing at the screen, pointing at my camera, which isn't even.
At least you have line numbers enabled. Whenever someone has no line numbers enabled, it's like chaotic.
Yes, yeah. And I always feel bad too, like sometimes just like dictating the line numbers, but I realize like I'm not communicating well. I need to try to communicate there. Cool. So that's great. I'm really curious now to see. I know we're gonna have some build errors. So I want to trigger a build across the whole project. And Tomas/Enrique, would you recommend Mike? I'm just gonna look at package JSON and see what the scripts are, but I imagine I could probably just build.
It would be npm.
Yes, thank you. npm build browser.
I think you have to say run in npm. It's not
okay.
That it's not yarny enough for this.
Oh, because I'm not in the right. I was doing something else. I wasn't in the right folder. Okay, we're building. I'm anticipating on it failing. That looks like it failed. Great. Oh, it failed on some tests. Yes, did fail here too. Where am I referencing? Am I referencing this thing? This is platform browser, which we don't need. Yeah, because we don't have that anymore. So we can get rid of all that. Great. Okay. All right. Is there one to just run TypeScript?
No, there used to be.
Maybe though the tests count as that?
Yeah, like you mean run all the tests? For sure, that will compile.
That will do just the TypeScript, won't do the web views and stuff, right?
No, yes, correct.
Okay, so maybe I should do that one. Okay, cool. Yeah, let's run
But
the tests.
if you would have files that are not included in any tests, I think they are not gonna get compiled.
All right. So I'm double checking the package JSON for the test. I see, yes, I run into this problem a lot where I'll do on this project npm run test and then starts doing the integration test. I'm like, there's a test unit, and that's the magic one. So I'm going to do npm run test unit. You know, those magic fast tests. Lets you assert everything really quickly. Okay. Oh, those aren't the warnings. All right. Okay. Wow, only one failure? I'm feeling pretty good about all this. This feels like oh yes, this feels like we were testing our addition to the GitLab platform. So I think now the idea is we want to move this to our GitLab telemetry environment browser is missing a test. Cool. So let's add a new test. Telemetry environment browser test. Can I just say I love the co-located tests? Like one day. That's a one day for the main project, but
Yeah.
not
Every
anytime
time
soon.
when I do something in the monolith,
Yeah.
it's just where are all the tests? They're well hidden.
Yeah. Okay, so let me copy. I guess there's not a whole lot to copy, but I'm gonna go ahead and close others, and I'm gonna open up this tab, which is empty, and I'm gonna open up this tab as well, and we're gonna describe this thing. Describe pop. Okay, GitLab telemetry environment browser. Okay. All right. So it seems like we were starting. We made this test. Cool, where we were checking all this out. Yes, great. I'm gonna go ahead and copy I'm gonna cut all of this. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Awesome. Okay. And I think I'm just gonna leave just this nice little each here. All right. It looks like I need to check this thing out. So let me do that. Oh, flip-flops. Okay. Oh yeah, I'll need to move this over. And I'll need to move this over. Right?
We won't need the manager anymore. We'll just need to create a new instance of the GitLab telemetry environment browser.
Yeah. Do you mind calling this subject? Sometimes I like to not think about what I'm going to call the test subject.
A nice advantage of having the telemetry environment as a separate object is that we don't have to mock all of the dependencies of the platform manager anymore. So we don't have to think about everything else that was a dependency.
Yeah. Oh no, so this is honest. He even hit yarn too. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Okay. I gotta do this better. Okay. What's going on here? This is always Paulson. This sounds like a great time to debug in VS Code, like while we're all here. What do you think?
Let's do it.
Y'all
we are
feel
not even using that service there. The one that gets the extension object, the web ID extension object.
Oh, we're not using this thing?
I mean, we are mocking that service in the test, the get web ID exports, but we are not using it in. Or do you?
Oh no, I'm not. I'm using this directly. Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I see. Get web ID. We moved this. Yes. I see. Yes. Brilliant. Great. I love it. Yeah, we're not using that in the subject, which we totally should. So instead of directly calling oh, look at that code suggestion. I wonder where it got that idea.
It's a good suggestion.
It is a good suggestion. Yes, good call. Yeah. Okay. Just for fun, do we want to see what it's like to debug? And because it's I've had always good experience debugging and just in this project.
And also, just as a before you do that, what would it look like if we didn't have extra module called get web IDE exports that just does that one line of code, if I'm not mistaken, right? That's what it does. It's you calling the
Yeah.
What if we just like mocked the VSCode extension, get extension?
Yeah, we could totally do
another...
that. Yeah.
I'd be pretty keen. I think that we discussed it with Enrique during the last session, and I'd be pretty keen on not having that extra level of indirection when
let's see.
It's gonna be pretty easy.
Yeah, it
to
looks like
mock.
we're only using this in the telemetry environment thing right now. So yeah, I'm down for doing that refactoring while we're here.
Okay.
Okay, let's do that.
Do we?
I guess you did it to foresee, like, because you were foreseeing that we will need many more things like fetch from API and whatnot. All of that's gonna, or get a token or whatnot. All of the things that will come from the WebID extension eventually, right?
I think this was probably included in a patch that I think because this looks familiar to me, so I might have like suggested Enrique when we were needing to do something like this. I was like, oh, we got to pull, or maybe you did this, Enrique, but
No, I
this
think
does
that,
look.
you suggested it, but I think like that the advantage of like wrapping that call is that ideally in any unit test that we are calling the get extension, we want to make sure that we are passing also the correct input, that we're passing the correct extension name.
Yeah.
But you know, like it's just like a super simple extension, and it's just like adding an extra assertion in the test, so it's not a big deal. But I think that was probably the reason that we like it's a little abstraction, but we are at least like saving ourselves the extra step of testing the parameter that we are passing to the get extension method.
Yeah, I do like how it simplifies the tests. But I'm fine either way.
Well, to address what Enrique is saying, we could create a constant for that extension ID. So anything that is importing it will use the same string, and also it will allow us to find all the places where we are importing it. Like I don't have a strong opinion. Like for now, I definitely would prefer to have less modules and less code.
Yeah.
But for future, if we are using this all over the place, I would agree that maybe extracting it makes things simpler.
Yeah, that's a good point. We're not using all over the place, so let's lean towards less modules if that's a concern. That sounds fine. So, and I'm happy to do a little exercise while we're here. So we are going to get rid of Git Web ID exports. I'm going to undo what I did here, which was doing. Clearly, I didn't even realize it was a thing. That's the downside of, yeah, sometimes the being aware of the abstraction's presence is is needed. So I'm going to delete this thing. And we're going to follow the errors. Boom. So we don't want to mock Git Web ID exports. We want to, and this is a great thing to dive into, is like, so this kind of stuff. Did we already talk about the VS Code as a dependency and like how it's used in the project?
We mentioned it last time, but let's go through over it again.
So this is a dependency that we only have a reference to the types and gets injected by VS Code runtime into the extension sandbox. So if I dive into here, I don't see any implementations of any of these things. This is a hook into the extension behavior that you can use in the VS Code instance. So that's great, except we get absolutely zero behavior in the test environment. So all of our VS Code interfaces, we kind of are manually having to create mocks that adhere to these types, which is great because we get the type safety stuff. But we're going to run into that of like, okay, do we have a mock for Git extension? We might need to add that just FN for it. There's cool third-party libraries that do this, but I think that's probably just a to-do to evaluate moving to a third-party library that provides VS Code mocks. So let's see if we do. And I think they all live in mocks. Yeah, look at this thing. Okay, great. Let's see if we have extensions. Git extension. Yes, it's there. All right, we're good. That's the big thing we need to do. So, yeah, I think I'm wanting to go back to my test land, and we're going to import star as VS Code from VS Code. Okay, and so instead of doing this setup, we're going to do VS Code extensions. Oh, look at that. I don't even have to think about it, man. All right. So this is a stub, and I have to wrap it in this mocked thing so that I can get the treated like it's a spy, which it is, or whatever the test term is. And I want to mock implement. I'm going to mock a return value, right? Return value once of exports. And then it has this thing, I guess. All right, now it's not going to like, I don't think it's liking anything here because
I think exports is a function.
Oh, exports is a function? Let's see. It's telling me something it doesn't like about the types. Oh, because the extension is...
Yeah. We don't have the type of the extension specified.
Okay. So do I give the type? I think I'll give the type here. So I could do something like web ID extension. Awesome. Okay. No, it doesn't like it because it doesn't want...
Without the extra extension, I think.
I think that's what it wanted.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I think you're right. I think, yes, you're totally right. I'm sorry. Okay, is that what it wanted? Okay, it wants a lot of other things from this thing, but we created a cool helper. We created a cool helper for this. Do you remember what it was called? I keep creating
something
these
partial fake, I think.
Yeah.
Partial.
I keep create fake
partially fake. Oh,
yeah. All right, I totally forgot how I used this thing, but let's see if we can find a reference for it. All right. Yeah. Yes. That's what I'm gonna do. Okay. So outside of this, I'm gonna create. Oh wow. Yes. And create fake partial. Yes. And I will pass in the web ID extension. Yes. Okay, great. And let me pass this in here so we can get rid of the lines, and then I'm going to explain what we just did. Oh, no. Why are you upset? Oh, because it does want to be a VS Code extension of this thing. Okay, brilliant. Okay, so all right, we're gonna dive into what just happened. Great. So our tests are also type safe, which is great. But one of the situations that can happen is it wanted me to mock the return for what Git extension would normally return. Well, Git extension, I can just highlight over this. I can see the kind of thing it returns. The Git extension takes in a generic type and returns an extension wrapper over that type. And so this VS Code extension bit has a whole bunch of more properties, not just exports. It has things like extension path, extension URI, ID, all sorts of stuff that I'm not interested in this test. So we could either beef up every single test that needs to create a type by like creating fake stuff for just loads of noise. Or we have a cool little helper here, which I'll pass in the type I'm wanting it to be, and then I can just give it a partial of that type, and it's kind of cheating, but it just makes it a little cleaner. So I'm creating a partial implementation for a VS Code extension of the WebID extension. And we're kind of cheating here where it does do a casting under the hood, but it's all in test land. So we're just saying like, treat it like a real thing. And so then I can pass it into here. And I think I actually get rid of this generic param because TypeScript is smart enough to know, oh, you're trying to mock it with this thing. This is the generics for all of that thing. I do need to pass the generic for this create fake partial because that's how it's going to know what extension should be. But now I think it's good to go.
When you were describing the create fake partial, you called it create partial implementation. What do you think about that name?
That's probably a better name.
I liked it because
I clearly couldn't remember what it was called. So yeah.
But partial implementation, I think if I use it twice, then I'll remember that I'm creating partial implementation.
I like that a lot. Yeah.
Maybe I'll do it in a follow-up MR. Let's not do it.
How do you feel about like oh yeah, I don't need to mock this. How do you feel about short things like create partial impl? I know you don't like that. I can see your face. You're like, no, please.
I don't know. Like when I'm in TypeScript land, I would write a essay for a variable name. When I'm writing Go, it's like 3 characters. Am I even Go programmer? Like that's too much for a.
Yeah, would it be worth having, because we have to like put in all the types? Would it be worth having a would it be worth having like a create VS Code extension helper which takes in the type and the name?
I think that's a good idea. Yeah, that's the other approach to this, and I like it. And I think the WebID has some functions like that where we have factories for the kind of some of the types that VS Code expects for tests, and I think that that's helpful. So I would think that yeah, having like a test utils / VS Code bucket of utilities sounds really helpful too.
And we also have in that same folder we've got I think it's called entities, and there are like either functions or already objects that are implementing everything that the extension uses, like accounts, projects,
yeah,
and whatnot.
Yeah. Cool. All right, so we did the browser. That's great. Let's see. I think we have some time to do the desktop one.
Can you go to the GitLab telemetry environment browser TS file?
Yep.
So there's some conditional check on the WebID extension existing as well as a fallback value to false. Should we add another test for the undefined value?
Dude, yes. Oh, yeah, 100%. Let's do it. I love it. We totally should. Well, okay. All right. I'm excited to. Clearly. But at the same time is TypeScript kind of forces me to do this. So one thing is like, because this could be undefined and me doing this null coalescing thing is like, TypeScript is also forcing me to give it a default. So what would be technically checking that is on top of TypeScript is that we're defaulting to false in that case. But I just want to emphasize is like, there's a lot of these checks that we kind of get for free because TypeScript forces us to do, you know what I mean? But I'm totally down with it because I just like coding with you all so much.
Wait, so are you saying that default value is never going to get used based on how TypeScript forces
No,
everything?
it definitely could. I'm saying that, like, I think in the main project, I'll find myself like, oh, this thing could actually not exist. And I caught it because I was testing that case and it's like, oh, we need to have a default here. When TypeScript is like, I'm not even gonna compile unless you can resolve your null stuff. And so I have TypeScript forces me to resolve the null stuff, and which is you'd have to test for, and you have to just keep an eye out on the main project. And that's the those are some of the, sometimes it's just like, then I don't really need to test for it. But in this case, I do think that, yeah, if I did this, no tests are failing. So technically we have a gap of coverage. So I think that, yes, it's worth doing something there. Especially because it's not going to take long to. So it returns, oh, I'm now realizing I'm describing this class. I'm talking about a class returning stuff, and that's not, oh my goodness. That's right. That's right. You're so right. Code suggestions. It returns false when web ID extension is not found. Okay. So then I think I can just do VS Code, got extensions, get extension, mock what am I trying to do? Return value, I guess once, undefined. Okay. Brilliant. All right. Yeah, I'm happy. Let's move to desktop land. I guess I'm gonna click this. I'm afraid of clicking that button. Do I really have to like scroll all the way up here to create a sibling file? Do you know what I'm saying? Oh yeah, it's creating one of the same parts. That's good. Ah! What happened? I see why you want to avoid new files. Pushes the top folder too far away. Okay. All right. So we had not had this Enrique, correct me if I'm wrong, but we didn't do the desktop implementation yet in the last week's meeting.
That's right. Did you implement it?
Yes.
It was in your call.
What'd you say?
What was it? Did you implement it on the APAC call?
Yeah, I think it looks like we did. And so looking at the previous behavior, what we had done was, so when we're in the desktop, VS Code owns, does the user have telemetry on or not? And we can grab this from the VS Code telemetry, is telemetry enabled property of this env property. All of this is really helpful. The VS Code extension API documentation is so good. So if you haven't seen it, just Googling VS Code extension API if you're curious about anything that's happening in VS Code world, of what the best practices are and how to use them is really helpful. But once I check this, it looks like it can then change. And so I then reset the variable here. But here's my big question. When I first saw this behavior in our pre-existing code, which is, I think, exists in our code for some time, Tomas would love to know if you happen to know the answer to this. But how come I couldn't just do this?
You totally can.
Yes, awesome. This is so okay. Because then previously before, and okay, so yeah, we had implemented it like this, and I was confused by it because I was like, well, why can't I just read this? Because if I add a listener and everything, it's like, okay, well, these return disposables. Do I need to like hook all of this into a disposable thing? And like I don't, clearly adding listeners just increases complexity. I don't want to seem like it wasn't needed. But if I could totally taking it that I can. And so I had said that this thing implements both the disposables, so it could be added to the top level that may be managing all the disposables that need to be taken care of for like when the extension gets unloaded and things. But now we are not actually needing that because we don't actually need this callback. I can just reference the thing directly.
I think that was something that we also discussed in the last call, that anytime that you can get the freshest version of the state rather than like storing the state somewhere is a much better pattern, because
Really?
it like prevents the complexity of actually listening to state and updating it.
That totally makes sense. Yeah. Cool. This is my least favorite ESLint rule, but yeah.
Can we just walk around it and not make it a class, but just fixed object when we are returning it?
I guess so.
That's how I usually solve the ESLint rule, and it results into like a shorter code.
Okay. I just, part of me is like, well, I'm gonna lose my capitalization and stuff, but yeah, that's fine. I like it. Let's do it. So I'm going to const. So we're not a class implementing something, we're const.
Yeah, that's it.
Doing a thing. Cool. Just like that.
Just like that.
Do we even need to test this thing? Yeah, we'll do it. Let me look for references to here because we will need to. Oh, it's not gonna like what I'm doing.
It's interesting that since we are using snake case to name the files, usually when we are using like camel case and Pascal case usually means that you are defining a class in a module. So like using a case convention that is not related to either classes or objects allows you to explore whatever you want.
That is an interesting point. Yeah.
I'd be totally up for not using snake case, but that's just a legacy. Like when GitLab started maintaining the extension, everything was already snake case. And like the benefit wasn't high enough to like rename every single file in the repo. But I think that in WebID we are using the proper TypeScript, Pascal case, and it's so much nicer.
Yeah. I think it's linted too, because I'll often forget working in both projects. I'll forget. So I mean, we're kind of doing overkill here with this, but I guess it's good. Returns the is telemetry enabled VSCode.env.
I'd be pretty keen on not using the each. I agree that it's when we are testing a mock, like we are going to be mocking a response value from something, there is no logic that would change on true and false. I don't know, but like it's a marginal preference. If you feel safer doing it this way, I'm totally okay with that.
This is just habit, so it's already done, so I'm okay keeping it. Oh my goodness, let's do it. I know you're wrong. It's code suggestions, but yeah, that's pretty close. VS Code env is telemetry enabled as a property, but it's not going to want me to assign to it. Come on, just let me assign to it. Do I do this object assign property? Is that how we're going to do this?
And what is the issue? Why is it complaining? Is it read only?
Yeah.
I think that try removing the line 6. I think that we don't even have to do that, to do the spiral. No? Oh. I think that in our mocks file, there is a comment about this being just like a normal property and not a getter. I might be wrong.
Can you say that again?
I think that in our mocks file, the file where we are mocking all of the VS Code API, there is a comment about is telemetry enabled, not being a getter, but just a simple property. But it seems like this contradicts that.
Yeah.
It's just a simple property.
Well, right, because it is just reading the types just from our type thing.
Oh yeah, the types contradict the mock implementation.
Yeah.
I don't know
So
if we want to do this kind of thing.
Yeah, so we can either do this if it will actually, if TypeScript will let us and it's not smart enough to tell us that it's read only. We can do that. We could change the mocks to make it the getter and setter. But that still doesn't help us with the types. And then we can just say that like take the end of object and then type it to, whatever you want. We could do that. Then it will let us override it.
Right. Oh yeah, if we cast it, I don't want to cast it to an init, but yeah, that's a good point. I'm gonna try this out.
You lose the.
If you go to the setup telemetry desktop test, we create a setter and a getter method and wrap it with that. That's how we're going through. And then we use the magic comment TS expect error. So because it's mocked, we're assuming it's readable.
I see. Well, I think I have a meeting right now, so I think I gotta hop off. Well, this is fun. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Paul, for driving the session.
Yeah, thanks for all the discussion. Appreciate it, Tomas, Enrique, and Aaron, and Alexander, and Natalia already left. So, adios.
Bye-bye.